has started. Thanks for joining, everybody. I will go ahead and introduce myself real quick before I start demoing the IndianaMap site and talking about some of the different capabilities for streaming, downloading, and accessing our web service that are hosted on IndianaMap.org. I am Matt Evans. I'm a GIS program specialist for the state of Indiana's Geographic Information Office. I've been with the state since August of 2022, came from Wayne County, Indiana, where I was GIS coordinator and worked for the city of Richmond in East Central Indiana prior to that. And I will go ahead and start sharing my screen. And Marianne, if you don't mind, if there's any others who join the waiting room, if you could admit them as they come in, I'd appreciate it.
I will.
Okay, thank you. So today I'll briefly go over the topics that I kind of wanted to go over with everybody in this webinar, which we will start with kind of a tour of the new site, and I will also turn my camera off real quick. Tour of the new site and the different web pages that are on there and what kind of information you can find on them, as well as the data gallery and some of the search interface options. So as you browse data, how to preview data and view details about it and add it directly to custom web maps as you sign into the site, either with a free community level ArcGIS Online account or your own ArcGIS Online account from another organization if you have one. We'll talk about how to download data and how to filter data before downloading it in a variety of different formats. How to generate web service URLs, both for the entire data set, but then also how to filter the web services and append some custom parameters onto the REST endpoint URL, and also how to sign up for and access the free community level ArcGIS Online account and kind of talk about some of the different applications and options that you get access to if you sign up for that free account. So for those of you, if anybody does not know, this new IndianaMap.org site was launched in May of 2022, and since it was launched, it's grown quite a bit and has changed quite a bit as well from kind of the interface perspective. So we are nearing 250 web services and geographic data sets available on the new site, and that number will continue to grow. We have a little bit over 100 data sets remaining needed to be migrated from the legacy site, the one that was maintained by the Geological and Water Survey for the I guess last 17 years or so, and hope to have plan to have either the vast majority of the data migrated or all of the data migrated to the new site by the end of the year. I'll kind of briefly go over the major topics of data sets that are remaining to be migrated, which are census population data, a series of historical census data, and a lot of that includes population data as well, historic legislative districts, both for the U.S. Senate and Congress and the Indiana General Assembly, historic land cover and crop cover data sets, as well as some historic impervious surface and woodland cover data, the surface statewide digital elevation model and the hillshade, and we have some data for essential facilities and critical facilities, including healthcare locations and some other kind of infrastructure level data that we will soon be migrating to the new site as well. Before I start touring the site, did want to also briefly go over some kind of upcoming features and additions to IndianaMap that we'll be implementing within the next year and hopefully sooner. First of which is some map viewer enhancements, so adding some additional functionality to the IndianaMap map viewer. As I mentioned, continuing the data migration from the Geological and Water Survey site to the new site. We are hosting a variety of orthoimagery and elevation data on a new environment that the GIO is hosting or working to host with AWS. So on a image dedicated platform. So we'll have a lot of new orthoimagery options from a new server coming soon. Improvements to metadata for a lot of the data sets on IndianaMap, so striving to reach FGDC compliant or fully compliant metadata. Adding additional field aliases and improved symbology to a variety of data sets, especially for when they're being interacted with in the IndianaMap map viewer to make them a little more user-friendly. Would like to better integrate our data catalog and our suite of web services with that community ArcGIS Online organization. So when users sign up for those free accounts, they can very easily access that those web services to pull into their own custom web maps and applications. A data catalog in a table format that will allow you to very easily browse data names and REST URLs so that you can pull those into the software of your choice easily, and continuing to build out our FAQs and guides section. So continuing to build some written documentation and some short kind of how-to videos. So starting with the homepage of IndianaMap.org, which is where you will be taken to when you first reach the site, is where you can both search for data, but also browse for data. So this search bar at the top screen will allow you to enter keywords and kind of a variety of search terms that you want to look for, and then that will pull you to a new page where you can start browsing for data and selecting data sets that you want to start using. As I scroll down, we have a featured event here, which is the webinar today. So as we continue to host webinars like this throughout the years, or throughout time, they will be hosted and made kind of prominent here. We have some direct download options for our large data harvest data sets that are pre-zipped in file geodatabase format. So if you click on any of these buttons here, you get a simple kind of drop-down menu where you can download the data from each year that we have it available. And down below, we have a suite of topic categories that our data is categorized into. So if you click on any of these data category names, it will take you to that same kind of browsing interface where you can go in and browse for data that's been assigned to one of those categories. We also have some links to the Indiana Spatial Data Portal maintained by Indiana University, the layer catalog to the legacy IndianaMap that still has some data available on it from the Geologic and Water Survey, as well as the IndianaMap viewer and a couple of other web mapping applications that might be of interest. And down at the bottom of the page, you can sign up or sign into your IndianaMap community account, that free account that I mentioned, which I will sign into a kind of demo account now, and we can look at some of the features that you get with that later in the presentation. And once signed in, you can see at the top right of the screen, you can verify that you are signed in and which organization that comes from. As I mentioned earlier, if you signed in, you can also sign in with the any other ArcGIS Online account. So if you do not want to create a new account, you have an account from your workplace or a personal one, you can sign up with it there and still take advantage of some of the capabilities that I'll be showing later in the presentation. So I'll quickly walk through the ribbon at the top of this screen, starting with the data gallery. So this is the same interface that is shown when you either search for data or browse for it from any of those categories. And by default, it will take you, Esri takes it to a relevance sorting option. So if we go to title, we can see the whole suite of 303 different web maps and data sets, but we can filter that just to feature services and map services if we click on this data section. So we have 236. You can also view only maps and apps, and we also have some documents available in here, primarily to download DLGF tables and the different pages of the IndianaMap site. So go back to the data section, you can see there's a variety of filters here. So you can filter by feature service, which the vast majority of the data on IndianaMap is in the Esri feature service format, but you can also select image service if you want to use any of the statewide orthoimagery mosaic data sets. Next is the map viewer page, which we're not going to talk in depth about the map viewer during this presentation. Later in the fall, we will have a separate webinar that will kind of talk about how to use the map viewer and everything that you can do with it. But this is the kind of primary site that you can overlay multiple data sets from IndianaMap. You can also add custom data sets either by URL or adding them through ArcGIS Online. You can interact with the data, view pop-ups for it. You can print your maps to PDF and also save CSV files of the tables of data that you might be looking at in the map viewer. And once it loads, the next page on the site is the Engage page. So this also has that same featured event kind of card on it, but also has kind of the primary landing section for how to access that community ArcGIS Online account. So if I was not signed in, this would also have a sign up button. And then once you're signed in, there's a button here that says Community Site. And if I open this in a new tab, it will take you to the IndianaMap Community ArcGIS Online, and this is where you can upload your own data, create your own custom web maps, etc. So as I said, we will revisit that later in the presentation as well. The enhancements page talks about the naming conventions for the vast majority of the data that's on IndianaMap, at least the data that is hosted by the IGIO ourselves. Has an explanation of the topic categories that the data gets categorized into. And I will note these topic categories come from the International Organization for Standardization's geospatial metadata topic categories. And these are kind of broad, far-reaching data categories that are used to encourage ease of browsing and finding the data. And would also like to note that any data on IndianaMap can be categorized into multiple of these categories to encourage browsability and ease of discovery. And down at the bottom of this page, we have some data crosswalks as data has been migrated from the Geological and Water Survey site to the new one. So if you click on either of these phases, you can click on Explore Table. And this will take you to a full list, and you can download this table or view it in this format, but has the full list of categories and names from the Geologic and Water Survey site, as well as their REST URL to the map services and their corresponding equivalent name and URLs, both to the REST endpoint and the data overview page on the new IndianaMap site. And we will have another one for phase 3 of the migration posted within the next month or two as we continue to get that kind of built out through the end of this year. The final page on the site is the FAQs and guides. So we have a series of accordions here for FAQs that are split into a few kind of general categories. So general questions, data download questions, map viewer questions, and community account questions. We've also currently published 3 guides in PDF format about IndianaMap, which are how to filter and download IndianaMap data, which a lot of these topics I'll be talking about today. A longer guide about how to use the map viewer and all the functionality that's built in there. And then also how to stream feature services and web services from the IndianaMap site in ArcGIS Pro. We will continue to be building some of these how-to guides and should have some for both online web mapping and how to integrate the IndianaMap web services into those applications, but then also would like to post one about how to use the web services in some open source software. So I will start with, we're going to take one data set, which is going to be our 2022 data harvest street center lines, and kind of walk through a whole series of what you can do with that data and how to stream and download it in a few different ways. So I will start by in the search bar on the main page of IndianaMap. If we search data harvest, that should pull up 15 different items, couple of applications, but then also a variety of data sets. So if we sort these by title, You can see a few different dashboards here. We do not have the 2023 data harvest dashboard on here yet, but we have 2020 through 2022. And then all of the data harvest data, including current data sets that will get overwritten as we get new data published, going back through 2020 and I believe 2019, just for the parcel boundaries. And if I clear the search filter here, did want to note a couple of the other filters that you can interact with in the search and browse interface. So for example, you could, if you want to see newly added data to the site, you could click on date created and you can see some of the a test data set that I uploaded just a couple of minutes ago, but also some land use, land cover data that we published last week, as well as some other data published by the Geologic and Water Survey and some geodetic control stations that we published recently as well. So if I go back to the data harvest search here, we will go to road center lines and the current data set. And when you click on a data set in the browse interface, it will take you to kind of the data preview page. And did want to note, you can see that warning message at the top that it has a lot of records. So to try zooming in, is this page does maintain the scale visibility ranges that we set when we publish data. So for data sets like the data harvest that have a lot of features in them, for example, the street center lines have almost 600,000 line segments in them. These are set to only start drawing when you zoom in a little bit. So if I zoom in, this blue filter should go away when the visibility range will let the data start being drawn. So you can see a little preview for what feature is kind of being selected by the pointer, which indicates the street name. You can also interact with the data while you're in this preview. You can view its kind of pop-up, so you can view that record's attributes and kind of explore the data a little bit. But this is kind of also the primary page where you can download and set queries on the data before streaming it, if you would like to stream it. So first thing we will do is click on this View Full Details button, and this will take us to a separate page that has the thumbnail for the data set, a series of information about the data, so indicates that it's an Esri feature layer, mentions that the data will be updated annually as the data harvest moves along. When it was originally published, you can view the data's attribute table, what its sharing level is, so everything on the site should be public, what the licenses and terms of use might be for that data, if there's anything custom, and also shows the bounding box for the features that are within that data set. And if we expand the summary here, you can see the summary of the street center line data and find out some more information about it. If we scroll down a little bit, there is a full list of the attributes of each data set. So for the street center lines, if we click load more here, you can see it's a pretty large attribute table, but this shows the field alias or the field display name for all of the different attributes within this data set. And if we click on any of them, like state left, for example, you can see what both the display name is and also the less cleaned up, without spaces and has underscores and everything, field name as well as what type it is. It's being a little bit slow, but typically if you click on anything that has a chart on it, it will show the list of values within that for that attribute. And that did not work, but should show you a chart that has a list of all the possible attribute values and the count of how many features have that given attribute. We scroll all the way to the bottom here. It has some similar data sets, web maps or data sets that you can interact with and select that are related either by keywords or by geographic area or extent. And the other main thing on this page that I wanted to call out is this I want to section. So there's a series of different options that you can choose to to use to interact with the data. And we will start by creating a map. So when you were signed into the IndianaMap site, either with your own ArcGIS Online account or that community level account that we offer, if you press Create Map and view an ArcGIS map viewer, it will open a blank web map in the ArcGIS Online organization that you're signed into, and then the data will be automatically added to that map. And if we zoom into the correct display range, you can see the street center lines start to pop in. And what we can do from here is we can save this blank, or it's not blank anymore, but save the web map with the street segments on it to a web map, and you can revisit that and build that out as much as you need. So when you open it in your custom web map, you can fully control the layer symbology, the layers pop-ups. You can also set custom attribute filters, etc. on the data, change your base map, and kind of build a wholly fleshed out web map from that one data set. And of course, can also add additional data sets to the web map from there. Can also create a story map, which I won't click, but it's a similar interface to that blank web map one that we looked at a bit ago. You can view API resources, so this allows you to easily grab a feature service URL, or is the hub interface calls it a GeoService or a GeoJSON URL. You can also open it in an API Explorer, which will allow you to customize a query and a whole kind of suite of output parameters on the web service so that you can kind of customize it to fit your needs, which we'll revisit that API Explorer in a little bit. You can view data source, which should take you to a REST endpoint for this feature service. And if we go back, you can also view metadata in the HTML format. So the data harvest layers have a lot of metadata that you can easily browse and kind of investigate some of that underlying information as you would like. And if you want to open it in ArcGIS Online, this will also preview it in the organization that you're signed into, but you can see the summary, the description, any terms of use that are applied to that item. You can also easily copy this feature service URL to pull into any custom application that you want from here. So if we go to View Map, we'll talk a little bit about how you can download and query data. So if we go to the download button on this yellow bar or orange bar on the left of the screen here, you can see there are 5 different file formats that you can download data in. CSV if you want just the tabular data, a KML if you want to work with the data set in Google Earth or an ArcGIS Pro, a shapefile, a GeoJSON, and a file geodatabase. And the file geodatabases needed to be manually enabled for every data set. I am pretty confident that almost all of the data that we offer on IndianaMap is available in the file geodatabase format outside of some, possibly some data sets that we get from external organizations, but that should be enabled for pretty much all of the data that folks would want to download. I do want to mention, if you were looking at address points or parcel boundary data from the data harvest, they are too large to fit in a shapefile format, so that download option is not going to work successfully. So you'll either need to query the data to kind of trim down the amount of records, or download it in another format, or even stream it and then export it from there in the file format of your choice. So you can see all of these data sets have had files generated on August 16th of this year at 11:35, and it indicates the size of that file. So another user has generated those files to be downloaded, so they are available to be immediately downloaded by any other user on the site. So if we click on this download options button, you can either download that previously generated file, or you can generate a new download with the latest data. So for data sets that we pull directly from other state agencies that are being kind of continually updated and maintained, you might want to regenerate the file download to get the most up-to-date data. But otherwise, the files tend to get updated pretty often, so you shouldn't be seeing pre-generated files that are older than maybe a week, typically. So if you download any of these, it will download the entire statewide data set, but something that I think we'll spend some time talking about is how to filter data. So if you click on the kind of funnel option here, this will take you to a series of options about how you can filter the data set and then either download or stream that subset of the full data set. So if we zoom in to where things will start drawing, going to work on querying some data around Wayne and Henry County in East Central Indiana. So you can see the streets have popped in, and we'll start by selecting attribute filters on the left of the screen here. So if we scroll down to an attribute that indicates what county the street centerline data came from, which for the data harvest is going to be the source originator field. Once we select that attribute, you'll see a series of possible attribute values pop up at the top here. The interface will always show the top 5 attributes by percentage of the statewide data set. So we have like Marion, Lake, Allen, Hamilton, and St. Joseph County have the highest percentage of the street center lines features, so they are automatically loaded. And if you click on any of those, it will only filter to Marion County's street center lines, for example. But if we want to pull in Wayne County or Henry County's data, we'll have to search for that attribute value. So if we type in Wayne here, it will search through all of the data, and once it finds them, you can click on that option, and then that will be added to the list of the checkboxes here, and you can see the smaller percentage that those make up of the statewide data set. So once you have a filter applied, do note that this small white box at the top left of the screen indicates how many records are being filtered out of the total statewide data set. So you can see with Wayne County streets, we have about 5,000 out of the nearly 540,000 street center lines statewide. You can also add additional filters by county. So if we wanted to add another county's streets to this query, we could do that by searching it or selecting it here. We can also add additional attribute filters. So if we wanted only major roads by the census's MAP and Tiger class codes, we could select this S1200 indicator from the that attribute, and then if we zoom into the Richmond area, you can see only these kind of larger state and U.S. highways are being selected for download. So if you want to download the filtered data, if we go back to the download button here, if you click the toggle filters button, it will reload the record count. So you can see at the top that there is only that 403 filtered street segments out of the total. And you can see all of the pre-generated zipped files have been wiped. So you'll have to generate a new file. So if we click on shapefile, it will go from the translating the feature service into that zipped shapefile, which might take a minute or two, but once that is available, it will automatically start downloading into your download options. If we turn the filters off, we can also look at another way of filtering data. So we will clear these attribute filters, but we have a series of spatial filters that you can use to select data that you want to download or stream. So we'll start with a point, where you can add a point to the map. And if you press filter to point, you can see there's no features that exactly intersect that point that I drew, but you are able to draw a buffer from that point. So if we wanted every street center line within 2,500 feet from that point, you can see everything that intersects that circle has been highlighted, and we have 145 street center lines available now. You can also filter by a line, and this is a similar idea to the point. So if we draw the line on here and we press filter to this line, we only have street center lines that intersect that line, but you can also buffer from that line, and then the record count will continue to change. And last other option is you can draw a polygon so that you can pull in any features that intersect that box that we drew, and then you can also buffer that polygon if you want. So I mentioned you can easily download the filtered data in whatever of these format options you'd like, but you are also able to, if we go back to this more info button at the top of this menu here, and we press I want to use this, these are the same options that showed up when we were on that layer preview or kind of more details page. But if we click back on the View API resources, you can see that there's now a URL that's been generated for the filtered feature service. So this has that bounding box applied to it, so you could only pull in these relevant street center lines to stream into your web map or your desktop software. The other primary way that you can filter data and customize output parameters is the API Explorer. So if I click on this link here, it will take us to a new page, which offers pretty similar capabilities to the query options at the REST endpoint, but does it in a little bit more of a user-friendly fashion. So you can see a full list of the output fields here. So if you do not want all of the fields to be included while you're streaming this data, you could unselect any of them. And as we're doing that, you can see the URL has gotten a lot longer because it has a list of all of the attributes that you want to include in your feature service URL instead of all of them. So if we select everything back, it's that shorter one. And we can also add attribute queries to this URL as well. So if you press the plus button next to this where and no active filter section, you'll have a drop-down menu where you can select any of the attributes of the data set that you want to query by. So we can, again, select that source originator field, and pulls up a like clause. So if we type in Wayne County again, and then we hit enter, that query's been applied to the URL here. And we could also add multiple other queries to this URL here in either the and or the or format. So you could build as long of a attribute query as you like before you pull this into another application. So if we scroll down past the input options, we can go to a couple of different parameters that you can set on the web service, which spatial inputs will allow you to select like a bounding box to select relevant features as you generate that output web service URL. So if you select envelope, you can add an extent from the map. And as we zoom in to an area in Indiana here and we hit apply, you can see the kind of bounding box coordinates have been added to that geometry section. And if we hit get response here, should have been added to the REST service URL as well. So I have a few different output options that you can append to your web service URL, which is if you want to return the geometry of the features. So if you want them to be drawn, or you only want the records in kind of a tabular format. If you want to return only the IDs of features that match the query that you set when you set this query up, and if you want only a count of the number of features. You can also select your output spatial reference. By default, all of the data sets that we host on IndianaMap are in the WGS 84 spatial reference. So this allows you to customize the output spatial reference to another coordinate system or projection that you desire in the ESPG, I believe, format. So if we go to this website here and we were looking for the Indiana State Plane East coordinate system, you can find NAD83 Indiana East is this 26973 ID here, which we could put into the output spatial reference, and then that query URL will change again. We go back to the preview and download options here, and we press I want to use this again, and we want to grab that web service. Can easily add that to a web map or desktop software of your choice. So I have a blank web map, ArcGIS Online web map here, and if we press this add button and we add a layer from URL, I have that URL copied, and as we paste it into that bar, we'll detect that it's an ArcGIS server web service. And if we press add to map and we start to zoom in a little bit, you can see those street center lines will start to be drawn. And again, like we did earlier, you could save this to your custom web map if you'd like. I also have a blank project in ArcGIS Pro open, and similar thing, if we press add data here and add data from path, you can paste that web service URL here. And as we zoom in, those features will start to draw again. And if you want to export or download your a local version of that data in whatever format you like, if you have ArcGIS Pro, you can easily do that. Should have been enabled on all of the data sets at this point. If you right click on it in your project, you can press on this data button and export features. And once this dialog box opens, we can select an output destination and an output format and export this to a local data set of our choice. So by default, this points to my project's local file geodatabase, and I can export a local feature class of the street center lines here. If you add it to ArcGIS Pro, similar to the web maps, it will also allow you to fully customize the symbology of the data, and you can build kind of advanced queries on it before exporting a subset of your data as you need to. Before we finish up, I am going to navigate us to the community account again. So if we go to the Engage page for that kind of landing page for the free ArcGIS Online accounts that we offer, and we go to Community Site, will take us back to this inmap-hub.maps.arcgis.com page. And if we click on Content, you might remember that I saved a map that we called Test earlier that had the street center lines in it. So now you can easily reopen that web map and share it publicly, and share it out as you need to, add other data sets to it and fully customize it to your needs. We'll talk a little bit more about the community account since we have some extra time. As I said, this is fully free, and it does offer any user who signs up for it a creator level ArcGIS Online license. So this allows you to host your own data. So if you press a new item, for example, you could upload some GIS data in the format of your choice and create a web service from it that you can share out and perform geoprocessing on, etc. You can create custom web maps, custom web applications, and if you click on these 9 dots at the top right of the screen near your profile option, you can see a full list of the application types that we offer users to take advantage of here. And if you have statewide data sets that you are interested in sharing with our office and think would be something you'd like to see on IndianaMap, this is also a place that you can host them. I believe we have one data set has been added to IndianaMap through this kind of hosting platform. Some of our historic PLSS data, which is a really cool project, has been hosted in this organization and is available on IndianaMap for download, free of charge for hosting and all of that. And I think that covers the content that I was going to talk about today. I think if folks have any questions that you would like me to answer as I'm able at this point, I'd be more than happy to. Can also put my contact information in the chat, and if anybody has questions they would like to have answered, you're more than welcome to reach out to me directly, and I would be more than happy to continue talking with anybody. And I think because this is a webinar format, I don't think you have the ability to unmute yourself. So if there are any questions, please do put them in the chat and I'll be able to address them from there.